Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Huck. Today I am talking about my 2020 goals. So these are going to be reading goals and channel goals. And for me, setting goals is always kind of a weird thing. I tend to treat goals more as kind of a direction to go in and kind of something to shoot for, but I'm less interested in really achieving those goals and more interested in the process towards getting to those goals. And so I just don't find them especially motivating, and I just am not a really goal-oriented person, which just like doesn't sound great, but it's true. So I'm leaving these goals kind of broad and open because those are the kind of goals that I actually tend to do best with, the ones that we just kind of see where it goes. It's a direction to move in and I see what happens. And with my reading especially, I don't really want to put too much pressure on it, especially for this coming year. I feel like last year I was putting a lot of pressure on myself with my reading, not necessarily for specific goals, but just kind of in general, I was putting pressure on my reading and I don't like that. So I still want to think about goals and make goals, but I'm leaving them kind of loose and open-ended and I'm not putting a lot of weight on them. And you'll actually see in most of the goals that I have for this year, a lot of them are focused on kind of alleviating pressure on myself and my reading. So let's get started. I'm gonna try and keep this short and sweet, but I don't know if it's going to be short at all just because I talk a lot. So the first goal that I'm going to talk about is, of course, how many books do I want to read in 2020. Last year I had my reading goal set at 50 books and I'm going to leave it at 50 books again. I'm expecting to read more than 50 books because last year I read 121 books and I don't think I'm going to read that many again. But I am planning to set it at 50 because I think that's easily achievable for me and then see if I can surpass that, and I'm expecting to surpass it. And I'm expecting to probably read more between like 70 to 80 books. Now the next goal that I want to talk about may be kind of surprising, but it is that I want to read fewer books in 2020. And I wanted to set this goal because last year I was kind of focusing a lot on reading as many books as I could. I wanted to push myself and see how many books I could read in one year. And in some ways, I'm glad that I did it because it was cool to see, like, how many books can I read in a year? Now I know I can read at least 121 books in a year, and I can say that I've read 121 books in one year. So I'm glad that like I did that, and I think that's cool. I have no desire to do it again. It is not something that I think I need to match or try to exceed in the future. I am good with having achieved that. And now what I want to do is focus more on reading the books that I'm really going to enjoy. And I really wanted the focus and the goal to be to read fewer books than the year before, whatever that looks like, so that it is very open-ended and flexible, and whatever I end up doing is fine. I really wanted to alleviate any pressure on my reading that I may have had from the year before, because in 2019 I was focusing a lot more on trying to read as many books as I could, and I made a video about this. I've talked about this multiple times, that especially in the first half of the year I was picking up a lot of books that I wasn't necessarily like really excited about, but I knew that they were going to be short, fast, easy books to read, that I could just rack up books in my like numbers, and I just like wasn't really enjoying what I was reading so much. And then the second half of the year I tried to kind of shift how I was choosing my books and what books I was reading, and I'm really glad that I did that. But I really want my whole year this year to be more like that, and to not have that focus and pressure on reading as many books as I can, because that's not the point this year. Related to that, I did have a goal about my book buying, which is that I wanted to also buy fewer books in 2020. I want to buy less than 80 books, or fewer than 80 books in 2020, because last year I was just trying to track my books. I didn't want to necessarily change my book buying at all, but I wanted to keep track of how many books I was buying in the year. I ended up buying like 113 books, I think, which is a lot, but also I read 121 books, and now some of those 121 books were ones that I didn't own. I got them, from Libby, from the library or something, but it still kind of was a similar amount. So if I'm thinking that my reading is going to be in the 70 to 80 book range for the year, then I also want my book buying to be in that range, and I want to buy under 80 books this year. So that will average out to being about 6 to 7 books that I can buy every month, which I think is enough that it'll be satisfying to my desire to buy books, but also not so much that it becomes overwhelming throughout the year, or that it, you know, makes my TBR shelf just grow in a way that is unmanageable. And it's still a lot of books. Like 80 books is still a lot of books. So I just need to more consciously kind of monitor how many books I'm buying each month. This year I also want to try and have a higher average rating for my books. Now, this doesn't mean like manipulating my ratings and like rating books higher than they are. It means that I want to like more of the books that I'm reading. And so I have two ways I'm going to try and achieve that. First is that I want to read more books that I'm excited about, which seems obvious, but it's not necessarily something that I've been doing all the time. But among a myriad of reasons, I think there are two primary reasons that I don't always read the books that I'm actually most excited for. So the first one being that I don't want to be disappointed. I think that I get really excited about a book, and then I start to think that it's easier for it to stay in that like shiny possibility of like, oh, I'm gonna love it, I just know, you know? And then if I read it and I don't love it, that's so disappointing. Now, of course, that's kind of ridiculous because I need to read the books that I'm excited about, and also reading a book that I think I'm going to love and then loving it is so great. So I need to actually read the books I want to read. And the other reason I think that I tend to avoid reading the books that I'm most excited about is because I think I'm afraid that I'm gonna run out of books to be excited about, as if there's like a finite number of good books or books that I'm excited for, and if I read them, then that's it. Then I won't have anything else to be excited about, which doesn't make any sense. It's not like that's actually going to happen, but I think that there was a point in my reading life before I found BookTube where I did feel like I had read all of the books that I was interested in. Maybe not all of the books ever, but like all of the ones I was interested in. And then there was like nothing else to read, and mostly that was because I didn't really have a good way of finding out about new books, and I also wasn't very like critical of my own reading or very aware of my own reading, so I didn't really know what to look for. And that's just like such a sad feeling to feel like you've read all of the good books and there's nothing else that's interesting to read. So like I understand why that's kind of like a subconscious fear that I'm gonna run out of good books to read or like books to be excited about. But in reality, I have the opposite problem. I'm always finding new things to be excited about, whether it's new releases that are coming out, backlist books that I'm finding out about, subgenres that I am discovering and exploring, whatever it is, I'm always finding new books that I'm excited about and then buying, and then my TBR shelf is growing. So I actually have the opposite problem. But that's because at this point, I know how to find books to be excited about because I have BookTube, so I have places and people to get recommendations from, but also I'm much more aware of my own reading habits and what I like to read, and so I am much more able to search out the things that I want to read and the things that I am excited about. So this is like a concern that is not actually like relevant to my situation anymore, but still prevents me from reading the books I'm excited for. So that's something that I really, really want to focus on in 2020 is reading the books that I'm most excited for, even if I might be disappointed by them, even if I might run out of books to be excited about, which is just not going to even happen, but reading those books that I'm excited about. The other strategy though that I have for having a higher star rating is that I want to DNF more books. I want to be more brutal with my DNFs because I don't want to waste my time on like reading books that I'm not excited about. Really, like what I think would be amazing is if at the end of 2020, I can't even make a worst books of 2020 list because there aren't any books that I hated enough to put on that list. If I'm not liking a book, I really want to DNF it. So I want to get better at that. So those are all of my reading related goals. I have a few channel related goals as well, and these are more things that I kind of just want to continue doing because I've been in a good place, I think, with my videos recently. So the first one is just I want to have a consistent schedule with my posting, and it's something that I was able to do kind of in the second half of 2019. The first half I was kind of all over the place, but the second half I was much more consistent, and I want to keep that going through 2020. Also in the second half of 2019, I've been posting 2, maybe 3 times a week, and I want to try making 3 times a week more consistent for myself. And you know, sometimes I might not be at 3 times a week, but I want it to be more often than not I'm posting 3 times a week. And my schedule is usually Monday, Thursday, and then either Saturday or Sunday. So that's kind of what I want to stick to throughout the year. Also related to consistency, I want to continue posting weekly book reviews. That's something that I really am glad that I had started doing in the second half of 2019, and I want to keep that going in 2020. So usually my schedule is that every Thursday I post a book review, unless, you know, there's some other reason. Again, these are like flexible, but I want it to be more often than not every Thursday an individual book review, because I really like having those on my channel. Something that's not exactly a goal, but something that I want to try for the year is I want to try doing monthly book hauls this year. For the past like 2 years, what I've been doing is every other month book hauls. So I'll do like January, February, and then March, April, and just combine all of the books that I get in those 2 months. But I want to try doing monthly book hauls this year and see how it goes. It just ends up piling up and being a lot of books to do all at once, and I don't put books on my TBR shelf until I've hauled them, because I like to keep them kind of all together so I don't forget which are the books that I bought recently and still need to haul. So I'd like to just do haul videos every month so that I can cycle them through and I don't end up with this giant pile of books, and I can actually move them onto my TBR shelf at the end of every month. Another kind of video that I want to do this year is my journal with me or plan with me videos for my reading journal throughout the year. I've already posted 2 of these. I have my 2020 reading journal setup video and my January setup video as well. And I talked about in those that my plan is to do one of those every month, setting up my spreads for that month, and I would really like to do that throughout the year, so I'm really hoping that that will be something I can do consistently. I also want to make more videos for my like Enneagram series. It doesn't really have a name yet, so the first video that I've only done one so far is about the Raven Cycle and the Enneagram. So the Enneagram is a personality assessment, and I kind of go through the characters of the Raven Cycle and talk about what Enneagram types I think each of those characters are. And I really want to do this with more books. I want to do this throughout the year, and at least, you know, every few months. I'm not sure how often I'm going to be posting them, just because they are pretty labor intensive videos, but I really want to make this into a series and post more videos for that. But as I said, that series doesn't have a name yet, so if you have any ideas for a name for that series, I would love to hear it, because I would love for it to have an actual name instead of just like the Raven Cycle and the Enneagram, this book and the Enneagram. I would love for it to have like a pithy name, and I just cannot think of one. And my last channel goal that I want to talk about, which is probably the only one that's like a real goal and is something that I have not done yet, is that I want to make actual recommendation videos on my channel. So on my channel, I do a lot of reviews of books and I talk about the books that I love, but I don't really make videos where I'm specifically recommending books or saying like, here is a theme and here are my recommendations for books with that theme, or whatever it is. Or one of those videos that's like, if you like this, try this. I love those and I really want to make some of those. So this year I want to make actual recommendation videos. So those are all of my reading and channel goals for 2020. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye.